Colin beat him up with a friend, and Brian just did the cover-up. You're hot.
You're hot.
You're hot.
You're hot.
Yeah.
I said, ooh. No wonder she didn't want to go to the after party. She knew Brian Higgins was going to be there, and she had been pursuing him.
Feel free to say the homeowner has gotten into fights with numerous other cops. Colin Albert and his uncle Brian Albert beat up John.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
How are you?
Good morning, sir.
How you doing?
Good morning, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Your Honor, and good afternoon to the jury.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
I do not remember.
I didn't learn about the Higgins messages, what was in them, until the trial.
Defendant responded, "Do you like me?" I said, "Yes," from jump. Defendant said, "When was jump?" I said, "First time I saw you."
Colin and Proctor. What? Beat up John or just Colin? Oh, for fuck's sake, Natalie. She thought that John O'Keefe was killed at the Proctor's home. This is dated April 17th, 2023, and it's from Karen Reed to Natalie.
Some of the private messages sent by Karen Reed using an app called Signal, which is intended for people not to see, have been revealed. Let's watch.
Information and documents that Karen is giving to Natalie to give to me. She sends the Tim Albert picture where he's like, nobody fucks with my family. There's this other picture here, the Michael Proctor picture with McAlbert children. She sends me this picture. You guys didn't see this picture until trial. So we're seeing this for the first time. These are Signal messages. They're already talking on Signal.
Signal's an app used to send messages and make phone calls without the actual phone carrier having a record of any of the communications. However, if someone takes a screenshot, they can potentially be displayed, and that's what's happening here.
I met him once 6 days before. Who all went to the bar? I think she's talking about Brian Albert.
Brian, last name Albert. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Your Honor, and good afternoon to the jury.
So that's when she met Brian Albert. This picture was taken a week before John died.
That's a picture of Chris and Brian Albert that we saw at the hearing next to John O'Keefe right there. Apparently Karen had sent it before it was actually used in court.
At the hillside. Then we have more screenshots here. Okay, phew. Can you see all my messages? The Alberts live at 34 Fairview. I found John on their front lawn. He lived at 1 Meadows Ave. So Brian and Nicole Albert live at 34 Fairview. Their nephew Colin and his family lived next door to John on Meadows until recently. Then it moved right near the bars we were at. He was at 34 Fairview and left just before we arrived.
Karen is sending these messages to a friend who eventually will be sending them to Turtle Boy. However, right here is where we first find out why little Colin Albert was falsely accused of getting involved. Let's keep watching.
So that would be Chris. I'm guessing Chris would have left, right? I know they're not talking about Colin.
Turtle Boy and the rest of the people that were initially involved in this case were told by Karen here that Colin Albert was involved in the murder of John O'Keefe. Because of this, Turtle Boy and the rest of the people that heard this have a hard time actually acknowledging any evidence that contradicts their original conclusion. That's classic confirmation bias. You can't fault them for it. However, at some point you have to get over and realize the fact that Colin Albert had nothing to do with this murder. Let's keep watching.
According to the fucking Alberts themselves. Oh, okay. I'd have to look up Proctor's address again. I don't know it off the cuff. His sister is Courtney. The Proctors are not related by blood to the Alberts. They're just very good friends. And then there's another message here. And so she goes, so that's Proctor, Natalie says. And she goes, yep, Michael Proctor.
She's a whack job. C-U-N-T.
Objection.
So don't spell it. These are your words, Trooper Proctor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
Cunt.
I thought this happened at Proctor's home. Oh my God, Natalie. Oh my God. Natalie's retarded. She thought that John O'Keefe was killed at the Proctor's home. She really didn't know anything, huh? No, Brian Albert's home.
Yes.
Proctor is investigating the case.
Cunt.
So do we think that Colin and Proctor, what? Beat up John or just Colin? Oh, for fuck's sake, Natalie. Jesus Christ. Proctor was never there that night. He first entered the picture of the whole murder at 6 a.m. when I found John dead. Colin Albert and his uncle Brian Albert beat up John. Colin beat him up with a friend, and Brian just did the cover-up. That part I'm not sure about.
Wow, this is very critical. You see here at the very beginning, Karen Reed is throwing out various scenarios for which she can envision John O'Keefe being attacked. She never actually acknowledged the fact that perhaps Brian Albert,
Yes.
and more importantly, Brian Higgins was the real killer. She was trying to pin this on little Colin Albert or little Colin Albert and one of his friends, and then having Brian Albert covering up. At the time, based upon what she thought was the truth, this was the only plausible scenario. We now know the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
was lurking right outside that house, and she wasn't aware of it, apparently.
This is interesting. What do you guys think of this? I don't know. This is interesting.
And this is very interesting from a psychological observation standpoint. We know that Turtle Boy believes that Colin Albert was involved because he was told that by Karen. And his brain, like most of ours, is excluding any evidence that contradicts that original conclusion that Colin Albert was involved. But now, given all the evidence we know, it's fascinating to see Turtle Boy's brain knowing that little Colin Albert was involved and knowing there was no mention of Brian Higgins, the real killer. And he's debating in his mind, can he go against that original conclusion or is he going to stick to it? Let's keep watching.
She says that Proctor... So she really... so the way this, was kind of presented to me was that Colin was very involved in this. And I still think Colin was involved in this.
He's not being deceptive, but his brain knows little Colin Albert wasn't involved, and all the evidence now points to Brian Higgins, the real killer, but he's still having a hard time admitting it because of confirmation bias.
Do you guys notice who's not mentioned?
Brian Higgins.
I mean, this is noteworthy. I'm not, this isn't drama. I'm just pointing this out. Do you know who's not mentioned?
Brian Higgins.
Do you guys notice this? Who is not mentioned in these messages
Brian Higgins.
about involvement? But yeah, Higgins.
Brian Higgins.
Higgins isn't mentioned anywhere. This was one of my complaints as a journalist. The Higgins thing was undersold to me. I didn't really get the Higgins thing. I didn't talk about Higgins much. By the second trial, the themes was Higgins did it.
In one of the documentaries featuring Karen, she admits that she had no idea that the people that they were just drinking with at the waterfall would ever actually harm John O'Keefe. However, she failed to recognize the biggest motive in all of human species is the motive to kill a rival mate, and therefore she thought of any possible other person. And of course, little Colin Albert was one of the people that had left the house earlier, and then she's trying to implicate an unknown friend, which we know no one else ever arrived except for Allie.
Karen, I don't know if she didn't think that Higgins did it, but she never talked about Higgins, ever. Or maybe she just knew that these messages were going to come out and that they were embarrassing and she wanted to avoid that topic.
It felt like the walls were closing in during the Higgins text messages. I could feel my parents shrinking, and that was painful. I felt like I was having an endoscopy without a sedative.
I've said it before, that's exactly how my ex-wife described our marriage.
It's exactly what it felt like. I don't even like to use the phrase having an affair because I wasn't married. That's one aspect of this that frustrates me is, Karen was flirting with somebody else or attempting to hook up with someone else. But John and I were just dating. We're middle-aged, and we didn't pay a mortgage together. We didn't have life insurance together. We didn't have kids together. Brian Higgins and I had a kind of a flirtatious back and forth for about 2 weeks, maybe a little less. And that was on the heels of my issues with John in Aruba.
In Aruba, Karen thought that she saw John making out with another girl. If you're a guy and you cheat and your woman forgives you, you are giving her a free pass to go and hook up with someone else. That's just the facts of life.
I don't want to put words in her mouth, but maybe she felt bad. Either way, I didn't learn about the Higgins messages, what was in them, until the trial.
Defendant responded, "Do you like me?" I said, "Yes," from jump. Defendant said, "When was jump?" I said, "First time I saw you."
Men fall in love with what they see, women fall in love with what they hear, and this is a perfect example of it.
Defendant said, "Come over my house."
So it goes on to say, hey, if that Higgins flip is true, I want to be invited to that party. Have a good night. All signs are pointing to him flipping, and the feds already went to Lucky Loughran with the GPS data, so it feels things are escalating.
This intercepted message is very telling of Karen's state of mind. She was so certain that Higgins had nothing to do with the murder of John O'Keefe that he would have the ability to flip, to turn state's evidence, to be a rat. in this situation, he would not have the ability to flip on anyone because he was the one that killed John O'Keefe.
I tried reading this earlier, but it's just too blurry.
When Turtle Boy was reading the intercepted messages, he couldn't make out the words in one of these text messages. We were able to magnify it and clarify it, and now we can read it together. And it says, I agree. This all really sounds very fishy. 2 black eyes? That's no hit and run. Sounds like he was beaten to death. Something is definitely wrong here. Wow, that is very telling as well, because so many people thought that John O'Keefe was beat to death. They initially figured there had to be more than 1 or 2 people involved. We now know that those black eyes had nothing to do with being punched in the face. It had everything to do with the coup contre coup, which was a result of John O'Keefe hitting the back of his head on that particular ledge or the ground. And it had nothing to do with being punched.
Karen sends some sort of screenshot, but I can't see it. And she goes, oh my God, I love you. Whoever she's talking to left some sort of comment that she liked. And I can't see Natalie's name on there or what she said. If this is Natalie, they say back, I love you more. These are the types of comments I will leave. I won't post any photos. Feel free to say the homeowner has gotten into fights with numerous other cops.
This message was allegedly sent by Karen Reed to someone else, instructing them to how to make a public statement. That's perfectly fine. She's fighting for her life. She had no idea that Brian Higgins killed John O'Keefe. In her mind, that was not plausible. And this is the reason why so many people incorrectly thought that little Colin Albert was involved, mainly because that's exactly what Karen Reed was telling other people to say.
Or John had a feud with the homeowner's nephew who was present that night. That would be Colin.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
I do not remember.
Or that John didn't have a single injury below his neck. Or that the German Shepherd chewed up his arm.
I didn't do it.
Anything. What do these messages show us? These messages show us that Karen Reed was desperate to get her story out there.
You better believe she was. She was fighting literally for her life, and she had to rely upon anything and anyone. And if it wasn't for Turtle Boy here, she never would have had the backing of all of us, including myself, in order to obtain her freedom.
Next message we have here. I have asked you 56 pages. This is interesting. Well, I have to ask you, 56 pages of text messages to Brian Higgins.
Brian Higgins?
Most married couples don't have that many pages.
That's 100% true. Those of you out there having an affair right now know there's hundreds of text messages with your boyfriend or girlfriend on the side, and maybe 2 or 3 to your spouse to keep them complacent.
What was up with that?
Defendant responded, you're hot. I responded, are you serious or messing with me? Defendant responded, no, I'm serious. I responded, failing is mutual. Is that bad? Defendant said, hey, we're single and we don't have kids. We can do whatever we want. Then I said, what do you like about me? Defendant responded, I just feel like you're from my neighborhood and I think you're hot. You really think that? I have always thought that about you, that you're hot, smart, witty, but I didn't think you were interested.
I think Plevin was the first one to point out that there was a whole bunch of Higgins texts put into discovery. And they were like, McAlberts knew what they were about. I didn't, because we were kind of kept in the dark about Higgins. And Karen says, there are about 4 messages per page. We hung out with Higgins several times a month. So she kind of blows it off like, yeah, there's 4 messages per page. And he lived 1 block away.
This is very telling, and we have to figure out why Karen Reed downplayed the relationship she had with Brian Higgins.
Brian Higgins?
Many times criminal defendants will come into you and they will lie to your own attorney. You don't have to. Of course, this is not her attorney. She doesn't have to tell this person the exact truth. However, had she revealed that one of the 10 potential people in the entire world that could have killed John O'Keefe was in love with her, this would have changed everything. By concealing this, by downplaying this, especially in the first trial, she almost went to prison for 20 years.
If we had a gathering or were headed out, I'd reach out to him versus John. Literally maybe 10 days worth of texts. It's not texts from a provider. It was printed out by Proctor. No, it was actually printed out by Higgins, right? He went down to the FBI, printed them out for him using government property, and only extracted the Karen Reed messages.
Karen is not only attacking the message, she's attacking the messenger. We know that for certain we were going to get these text messages regardless of what Brian Higgins did, because they were sent not only to John's phone, but to Karen's phone, which she had.
That is downplaying. I think we can all agree downplaying what those messages were. She's like, oh, it's not big. The font is really big. It's a really big font. We hung out with Higgins. We, not me. We hung out with Higgins several times a month. If we had a gathering or headed out, I'd reach out to him, or I think she meant via John. Literally maybe 10 days worth of texts. So basically she's poo-pooing this. And I don't know what her plan was here, because as you know, I don't really talk to Karen Reed. But if I did, I'd be curious what her plan was here. Like what, because she knew it was going to come out eventually, right? Did she hope maybe this whole thing just got dropped and then this would never come out? That would make sense, right? Maybe she didn't want me to think less of her. I mean, they're embarrassing. They're humiliating. You're hot.
You're hot.
You're hot.
You're hot.
Yeah. Who would want those out there, you know?
That's a great point by Turtle Boy. Perhaps Karen was embarrassed about these text messages, despite the fact that they were going to help her obtain her freedom. And of course, we know that Turtle Boy doesn't have any leaked, embarrassing text messages that were made public that would actually make him look worse to her. Confirmation bias is real, and we're seeing someone go through it right now. Eventually, people will come to learn the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
was very easy to figure out and very obvious. But no matter what, we are never going to stop producing these videos until the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
is brought to justice.
What kind of relationship? A buddy-buddy relationship?
the same thing everybody wants, a real relationship.
A romantic relationship, Mr. Higgins?
It's possible.
Right.
I kissed gay Jeff. The same thing everybody wants. A real relationship. It's possible. Sending somebody flowers. It's possible.